Hey, you guys. So today I wanted to talk about some of the different, I would say, horror, Halloween, spooky season type movies that are out there because I feel like once the end of August, beginning of September comes around, we do start getting more and more of, these types of movies since this, spooky season is around. And then your cable providers, they'll come out with their lineups like, hey, this is on your local programming, check it out. The streaming services, they may provide like, hey, these are the movies that we have on our streaming services, check them out. Um, Things like that. But I feel like there's these different buckets that people are very interested in. And for some, like, some people can handle like a lot of screams and like a lot of horror, some can't. And that's where these different buckets I think come into play, and a lot of people can still feel very excited for the spooky season, get really hyped up for this time of year. Mind you, you do have people all year round. I'm one of them. So, like, you have people all year round who are interested in, horror, the Halloween horror genre. But even once, like, the 4th of July is done, there is no holiday, like, big holiday until Halloween. Mind you, you do have Labor Day because you get the day off. But a lot of people, even after the 4th of July, start looking forward to the spooky season. But now that we're in this time frame, we're in this groove, you have people that are like, I'm ready. You know, more people are watching, their Halloween type movies, getting into that, vibe of the spooky season. And so I just want to talk about, like I said, these different buckets and different ways to almost explore other things that are out there. Of course, I think a lot of people already know the ways to explore, so I'm going to save that really for last. But the buckets that I'm talking about are, at least this is how I categorize them. Everyone's going to categorize them very differently. You have, I would almost say, your more like tamed down horror Halloween type movies where you have your Hocus Pocus, you're gonna have your Corpse Bride, Coraline, Nightmare Before Christmas. I know that's very much debatable for some people, where is that a Halloween movie? Is that a Christmas movie? I am mentioning it nonetheless because for some it is a Halloween movie and for some it's a Christmas movie. So I'm putting it in, I do not care. But so you have that sort of like tamed down, like you still get that Halloween vibe, but it's not oh so scary to where you can't like enjoy the film. Then you have, I would almost say, like the campy, like fun, parody like, you can make commentary during the film sort of movies. So mind you, this can almost be like your guilty pleasure films because, like, I have some guilty pleasure films that are still slasher films, but mostly within this, it is going to be mostly considered, your think like the scary movies, the movies that are very much like parodied after, some of these like slasher films or horror films that we do have. So it is going to be more so fun with like some of that like horror element, but it's going to have more of that comedy. But I also think there's that part of it where, again, it can be that guilty pleasure piece. And with that campy side, like you have some of these films where, is there some, I don't want to say edge to it, but is there something like different in these films? Then you have the, like, I would almost say nostalgic bucket. So how I kind of categorize this is, think like Carrie, Psycho, Halloween, Friday the 13th, Nightmare on Elm Street, The Shining, your kind of classic films where, for me, they're very much nostalgic because at the time when these were made, they kind of used what they had. There's docu-series on there, there's documentaries, on how some of these films are made. And, I've watched some of them. There's one in particular that kind of goes over Friday the 13th, Nightmare on Elm Street, and Halloween, as well as some other ones that goes into like how movies are made, like the horror edition. And so, like for me, they go into like how those movies are made, and this bucket is just nostalgic for me. Like I enjoy these films, as do I think a lot of other people, because they are the classics. They are something where they were created as years have gone on. They became like these big franchises, maybe got reboots, and they kind of have, this big following, and people enjoy them for a lot of different reasons. But within this, nostalgic bucket, you are going to also have your subsets where, you'll have your slasher films, you'll have, you know, could they be based on books, everything else in between. But you have your other buckets where, yes, they are traditional slasher films. You have your buckets on inspired by, or based on true events. Think kind of like similar to like the Conjuring films, and like kind of the Amityville horror, where you have the famous house and everything. But then you have these other kind of subsets of horror where it's more psychological horror, and just like what you may have, like, I don't want to say Christmas horror, but there are some other forms of horror within these buckets that you may have. And when it comes to this time of year, I think, everyone has, I don't want to say their comfort, but people enjoy their films for a reason. Like I said, like a lot of people enjoy their OG, nostalgic films. Some people like to stay with their comfort zone because some can handle, I think, a good amount of scare. Some can't. Some people like to have fun with their films. That's why there's, some of these different buckets. And I think recently, when it's come to horror, there's been a lot of different ideas and concepts, which I think have been really interesting to see. But we've also seen I guess you could also put this in its own little bucket, where horror has almost taken like a new shape, where these characters that we've loved, we've had Winnie the Pooh now turned to horror. I think I read recently where, like, I need to see if I can find the article again, but I thought like Mary had a little lamb or something that was going to be turned to horror. I have no idea, but we have like this other bucket of like childhood stories, like turned to horror almost. And so it's been interesting to see how these ideas kind of expand and where they kind of go from here. And so what I can say is, when it comes to what people are comfortable with, of course you can definitely search. Like, as people discover new movies because I have not watched everything that's out there. Every year I feel like I discover something new where, the movie could have been made however long ago. I didn't know about it, or maybe didn't get the chance to watch the older, maybe version of a movie that has come out now. I'm watching it for the first time, the older version. So, you have that sort of situation. You have one where maybe it's not talked about enough. I think if that's something that you're interested in, everyone knows. Like, I don't need to sit there and explain, like, you can Google it, or like on the streaming services, they definitely have like the recommended, like if you were to look up your genre on horror and, hey, you want something like Halloween, like, they have different kind of categories for that. And even if you didn't want something movie related, I don't know how some streaming services do with this. I know when it comes to some, they are able to maybe do more so like episode related, so they can find you, like if you want like a Halloween related episode or something more so like television related, that is more like granular, and they can do that for you instead of maybe you don't want a movie. So some of those things, it's definitely like, if that's something you're interested in, you can definitely search it, see what you can find. I know that there's, God, as this month continues on, I know next month there's going to be a bunch of stuff that like continues to come out because it's October. So it's just going to be interesting to see like where the genre continues to go, and essentially what new ideas continue to come out. But I'm always excited. I'm always to see what kind of creativity comes out of it. I think it's been a good journey from, what has been, what we've, kind of started with, and then where we've kind of come. So, let me know in the comments down below maybe some of your favorite Halloween movies, what you like to watch during this time of year, any buckets that maybe you are more so geared towards, or if I missed any. And I will talk to y'all later. Bye.